Welcome to Spoiler Talk, where we talk spoilers. I'm your host Kieran, and with me, as always, is Jax.
Hey, good to see you again.
And you. This week we are spoiling Black Widow.
Let's get right into this. This is a spy espionage thriller, and I think the first sequence, the first set piece, where we follow Black Widow as a child, she's got blue hair, and we follow her in her Russian spy origins that we've kind of had hints towards. And I think the first 15 minutes of this movie are spectacular. We get really interesting character stuff. We get some really interesting ideas kind of thrown at us. And then I think the rest of the movie decides to not really engage with that. And my biggest takeaway would be like, cut the last half an hour just out of the movie or completely change it and give us back that 30 minutes at the start of the movie. Give us those kids growing up, being Russian spy operatives, living in America, living there, doing that thing. Because what we get is kind of really interesting. And then boom, we're off, we're going, we've done our mission. We get a really fun little sequence where David Harbour's like on the side of a plane, trying to do his best Tom Cruise impersonation. He's flipping trucks, they're shooting, she's like getting shot and flying, and then there's all this really fun stuff, and you get this really great scene where Black Widow as a child holds guns on people. She's like, I'll fucking kill you. And then she's speaking in Russian saying, I'll fucking kill you. And you get this really interesting thing. And then there's an incredible opening sequence where they play Nirvana's Smells Like Teen Spirit, but it's like a slow, moody, like cover, and it's sung by this woman, and it's really moody. All the shots are like of all these child like soldiers going into the Black Widow Red Room thing.
It kind of reminds me of almost like a Tony Scott film. You know, like flashes and montage and grain and everything's orange or sepia, or, you know, like...
It reminded me of the Bourne Identity kind of stuff, where it's very dark, and it really made me suddenly go, holy shit, we're gonna watch like a serious spy thriller. They're gonna really get into that really heavy, dark stuff that they like touch upon in Avengers 2, where they're like, yeah, Black Widow was totally fucked up. That whole Red Room thing was super cooked. And they never really get to that point again, and they never really kind of get past the cool idea and concept of this Russian family. What do you think about that?
It's a shame because we have three incredible performers, two of which actually deliver. The third being Rachel Weisz, who...
Not a fan?
I'm a fan of her. I love her in The Mummy. I love her in The Mummy too. But she's just really not much of anything. There's also a very strange decision that's made. So early in the movie, David Harbour and Rachel Weisz are speaking in just thick, plain American accents. And then we jump all this time in the future and they have very thick, lifelong Russian accents. And I thought, okay, so obviously they're just integrating and they're faking it, which is cool.
Even when they're by themselves.
Yeah.
But I thought that was really cool because it's like, we're spies. Maybe there are American spies who know and are onto us and are waiting for us to slip up at home.
Right.
See, there was so much at the start where I'm like, this is really interesting.
I could have used a bit of slip up, you know, just in that early part, just to...
If we had a 30-minute sequence, honestly...
But that's exactly right. We need a 30-minute sequence. We need more, because what we're left with is just the very end of their mission as they're running away. So we don't get any time to live in this world with them. And it's, I mean, I understand the decision to just open with this little tiny bit, little action sequence, set up our characters very quickly, and then get straight into where we know Black Widow should be in the MCU.
And to cut to the Scarlett Jo of it all.
Yeah, and then catch up with her and go from there. But this movie really needed more time there.
If this had been half a movie of young, non-Scarlett Johansson Black Widow, or Natasha Romanoff,
non-linear,
and then
like,
but even just for half the movie, child Natasha, and then Scarlett Jo, Natasha Romanoff. I think that would have been amazing, especially when we get to my favorite scene later, where they all get back together, and he's like, the family's back together, and it's all like we get this moment where you're like, oh, they're all back together, but I really don't feel like I got that moment where you're all actually together as a family. And there's some really interesting stuff where he's like, fuck those 3 years, I hated that. And Scarlett Johansson's like, it was fake, it was... And then the youngest one, Florence Pugh, who kind of is the standout by far in this movie, at least for me, she's like, fuck you all for saying that. That was my whole life.
Well, she was so young that she didn't know it was an illusion. And then you have Natasha, a little bit older, who's... You can see she's seeing through the veneer of it, but she's still happy because this is a majority of her life that's been spent here. I did really like the performance from that young girl when she pulls the gun out on the runway. I thought, oh, this is really, really good. I really enjoyed just how it was shot, how it was performed, how it was all put together tragically as they put the syringes in the neck.
Her fear over Florence Pugh's character, realizing she's going to have to go into this, and she's like, she's only 6, and he was like, you were younger when you were Black Widowed, and she's like, fuck that shit.
Yeah, that's why I know it sucks. So the first time I watched this movie, I've seen it twice. The first time I watched it, I missed that someone called her Nat at the beginning. So I thought young blonde girl was ScarJo because she looks so much like a young Scarlett Johansson. And Scarlett Johansson has been in the public eye since she was a child. I've seen Scarlett Johansson on an interview show as a child. She looks just like the little blonde girl who's young.
So that's like almost an accidental mistake in casting.
So that's when I'm watching it, I thought it was an intentional fake out, but when I rewatched it, I noticed someone calls her Nat right at the outset. So it wasn't even meant to be a fake out. I just missed that line, and I thought, oh, who's this blue-haired girl? Oh, well, there's Scarlett. There's a young Scarlett Johansson. And then for me, the revelation came with the gun, because that's the first time I hear her name and I go, oh, blue-haired girl is Scott. Oh, this is great. But I had gotten something which the filmmakers hadn't intended at all. But yeah.
That's really funny. It's a little weird that she's like, got blue hair just because it throws you from what. But maybe it's just kind of keep us up to date with like, she likes changing her hair. Sometimes it's red, sometimes it's black, sometimes it's blonde.
So they're very well known in the MCU that the producers or directors or whoever's kind of running the show let the actors have a lot of creative control over their characters, especially the big actors,
especially with the hair,
over the long course of the film series. So what you've seen, say, with Tony Stark is he gets to Robert Downey Jr. gets to really create a lot of the dialogue and a lot of the performances and rework it and reshoot it, and a lot of that isn't scripted. He's doing it. Thor obviously got the comedy runaway with Ragnarok, and that's continued on since. But you're exactly right. Scarlett Johansson has been the creative director of Black Widow's hair the whole way through. So I almost think, she might have had that idea to have young girl with blue hair, because that might have been the only time, I love it as a visual metaphor, the only time she had her own identity before it was stripped away. You know what I mean? And then for the rest of it, it's red. And then not until the end of this movie, we see her go blonde. So just staying on the hair briefly, and then we'll go to more important stuff.
Don't worry, we're sticking on the hair for longer. Don't worry, guys.
I would have really liked that if they had. I would have really liked if they had actually built the coloring of the hair into the plot. Like if she had to go on a Black Widow mission and couldn't have the red hair, and then actually dyed it before the third act, which would have led more suitably into Infinity War, where she's got the short.
So you wanted more color hair origins and less vest origins?
I think more than I want origins, what I want is it to be integral to the plot. And I want it to be built into the plot. So do vest origins, but...
Or maybe don't.
Or only do any of those things if you have a really good, solid reason for it. And, you know...
Poker joke, I guess, is funny.
So another big element is a couple of throwaway lines from the first Avengers film. Dracov's daughter, Loki, and Black Widow's, maybe both of their best scenes together in that, not even together, with anyone. That scene with Loki and Black Widow, that interrogation sequence, I think that's the pinnacle of Black Widow. I don't think they ever top it. I think there are moments in Winter Soldier where they do, but she's not the main character. Not that she is in Avengers, but she has such a command in that film. Joss Whedon is so sure of who that character is at that point, who she was, and what she's doing, and how she fits into the framework of the film. Now that I get to look back over the whole Black Widow, tapestry, I think that's it. That sequence, that scene really And we don't get any good scenes with her in Iron Man 2. She's kind of just a taskmaster.
Yeah. Oh god, yeah. Take that.
In that film, but then in
100%,
Avengers she gets to shine. He also
That's when you go, oh, she's an amazing character. And that's probably when everyone was like, can't wait for that Black Widow movie. Guess we had to wait 14,000 years.
Would it have been better if Whedon did it? Maybe.
Oh, that would have been really interesting.
Because he really got her, you know, and he really did something with that character. And then in Age of Ultron, he takes some of those themes that he knows about Black Widow and the Red Room and goes in a different direction, which a lot of people didn't like. And then I think after that, her character is just forgotten about. And she's only there to be an observer of the larger MCU and everything going on.
Yeah.
You know, even her romantic relationship with Hulk is just completely jettisoned.
Super bare bones when it's there as well. Just kind of little tidbits.
So I really like, I mean, when they start saying Dreykov's daughter, Budapest, all these things we know about the character, first I'm like worried. I'm like, don't show this stuff because it's a running gag between Hawkeye and Black Widow. And it's like X-Men Origins Wolverine style. You'll never be able to do this justice, so just don't do it.
Yeah.
So I like that we never really go back there. We only get little glimpses and it's talked about. But I like how they incorporated Dreykov and Dreykov's daughter into the plot of the film. I thought the reveal of Taskmaster, even though I may not like the Taskmaster thing in its entirety, I thought the moment and the reveal that it's Dreykov's daughter, I was like, fuck, this is amazing. Cool. I love this.
Okay,
But again, it never really, it's cool to have an interesting concept, but it's really what you do with it from there that makes it great, you know?
Talking about Budapest and that whole thing, because to me, Hawkeye and her are always like, oh, this reminds me of Budapest, shoot arrow, bam, 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 bam.
We remember it very differently.
And it's like, and it's very jokey. And to now be like, yeah, Budapest, when I murdered that child. I'm like, you shouldn't have been joking about Hawkeye like that. Like, I know he's maybe not meant to know that you murdered it, but even though it's revealed that she didn't murder the child, which I also don't think, I didn't really like that either. I think if you're going to imply that she murdered the child halfway through and make me go, oh, this is the spy thriller Russian hiding, this is the movie I want it to be, and they go, actually no, she's fine, and now she's your villain. I think either do it or just don't even add that to her, because now all those jokes that she made in Avengers and stuff, it just feels a bit like a little bit of poor taste. Like, I don't know, just the way they kind of framed it. But did you like Scarlett Johansson just generally in this movie?
So that's a big part that I wanted to get into. So I've kind of mentioned what I think about the Black Widow side of it, and then there's the Scarlett Johansson side of it, the actress. And it's almost unfair to criticize her because there just really isn't much for the character to do. There's not really any opportunity I see in this movie where she could have delivered a performance that really fixes anything, or
unless the script is entirely changed in a way.
Yeah, this is ultimate. Like, she doesn't get to Black Widow in this movie. Like, Black Widow doesn't get to Black Widow in Black Widow. Yeah. I want the interrogation scene with Loki with someone else.
Yeah.
And I want her to outmaneuver someone who, you know, with her wit, with her cunning, with the spy qualities, and really all we get is kind of a rehash of exactly what she does in Winter Soldier.
Just the Winter Soldier
she just wears a mask.
Mission Impossible mask thing. Yeah, I was really underwhelmed by that because it doesn't, she's like, I'll trick him with this mask. And he's like, something mask, and immediately takes it off. Nothing seems to kind of have changed from doing that. And then the only thing that she does that's kind of interesting at all, which I thought was a really good scene, but it's way too late in the movie, is when she's like, I dare you to punch me in the goddamn face. And he beats the shit out of her, which is horrific. And then she's like, twist, I've stopped your magic smell powers. And then she smashes her nose in to the table. And like, I really like that.
Did you?
Oh, well, like the idea that she has to do that to overpower him and change it.
Yeah.
I didn't like watching it, but I thought that's a really interesting idea. I just think that shouldn't be the only moment where I'm like,
You Black Widowed this.
You Black Widowed this.
Yeah.
And I kind of find it a bit awkward that she gets her origin movies in quotation marks, because it's not an origin movie.
Yeah. It's an in-between qual.
Yeah, and I really kind of find, like, I guess at the end when you're like, oh, I guess Florence Pugh's like maybe the new Black Widow-esque character, maybe it makes more sense that the script makes me like her a lot more, and her whole arc and all of her kind of character stuff, which still isn't enough, because they still kind of give everyone a little bit. Like her and David Harbour get really nice little moments, but then by the end, it's mostly just Russian Captain America claims that he fought Captain America.
Yeah.
And then I'm kind of like, well, I just really want to see that movie.
Yeah.
Like, because he lies about what time it is, and I'm like, did Captain America like time travel? Is it different Captain America? Like, is he just lying?
Yeah.
And then suddenly I'm like, that just sounds like a better movie than what we got. Can you imagine him and Chris Evans teaming up in a movie?
I would have loved to have seen Chris Evans in this.
A flashback actually revealing. Like, to him joke about that and they'd be like, that's impossible. The big muscular guy in prison's like, that couldn't have happened. He was frozen in... And I'm like, I like how this guy knows when Captain America was frozen. All this stuff. It's a lot of fun. But man, imagine if he'd been like somehow the plot had kind of turned in a way where we needed to see that flashback. And I'm not saying this movie made me go like, oh, where are all the other Avengers? Where's my Tony Stark?
Because this is probably one of the examples where that works the best. Is that there's no other Avengers because they've all been split up.
Yeah.
There are no Avengers.
There's a really fun scene right at the start where General Ross is like, I've got the little man and I've got the Hawkman and all this stuff. And she's like, I'm better than all those cunts. I'm fucking... And then she gets away and
I'm already gone.
Yeah. Oh yeah, she's already gone. I was like, I don't remember how she gets out.
Or I was never here. I don't know. Something like that.
Something Black Widow.
Yeah.
But I think that just, my biggest issue, not maybe, my biggest issue is probably Taskmaster, but my biggest issue besides that is that Scarlett Johansson doesn't get any kind of stuff to like Marvel's big thing over the whole course of Marvel, especially early on, and this really feels like an early on movie. So like maybe they made this script ages ago and they've been holding on to it, been like, ooh. The heroes get to shine and the villains don't. Iron Man doesn't need good villains. I don't care if Whiplash is a shit villain. I think he's fine. I like him a lot. He's like, whips. But it's like, because Tony Stark's the main character, I've always found that people's issues with the villains are like, well, then you wouldn't get 2 hours of Thor being awesome Thor.
Yep.
You get to focus on Thor, and there's a fucking dark elf, whatever, but I only want him for 5 minutes so we focus on Thor.
Yeah.
So if you're going to make the villains in this atrocious and one note and bad and just like really bad and just really underwhelming, especially the potential of them, like, we'll get to Taskmaster, but like, if you're going to make them like that, I should, at the end of this, love Scarlett Johansson's Black Widow. I should be so sad that she's dead now that we don't get another one, or be like, oh man, maybe there's room for like another one in between in this era. Maybe we're going to get 3 Black Widows between these movies and really want that. Whereas now I'm like, I guess it's kind of cool that other Black Widow, her sister, is going to be in it now because I really liked her. I can't wait to see her again. Yeah. I really want to see Red Guardian.
Oh, yeah.
I want to see
David
him
Harbour.
again because I really like his performance. I thought all the stuff with him was really interesting. Like, he was like this tough Captain America guy and he was like forced into this family dad kind of situation and he pretended to like it, but did he actually loathe it?
Yeah.
He seems to every second he can get, he's like, I fucking hated that shit. And it's like, oh man, that's pretty intense. And he's locked in prison. He somehow gained weight even though he's a super soldier and all this stuff. Really interesting. Whereas Scarlett Johansson, it's like, she hit her nose on the table. I guess that was pretty cool. Like, I don't know.
She doesn't have any agency. Is that the right word? She's not the thrust of the story. She's not grappling with anything she has to overcome, really. I mean, the Red Room is, I guess, kind of that, but it feels like something she's long forgotten about. And obviously that was orchestrated, but...
Yeah, because she's literally halfway through. She's like, I already got rid of that. I already did that. That was my Budapest mission. That's why I was an Avenger. That was my last mission and stuff. And it's like, cool. And then she's like, oh, I guess I've got to do that again. Like, I almost feel like maybe if in this movie she'd killed the daughter and then, I don't know, somehow the daughter... I don't know. I found that all just a bit... And I think maybe one way to make it really interesting is to have, like, at the end, she magic dusts Taskmaster and she's like, you're free now. I saved you. And the Taskmaster's like, you fucking bitch. You turned me into this monster. And then on the ground, after that CGI, whatever the fuck, they have a real gritty, dirty fight in that mud. And then she has to murder Taskmaster. And then she's like, oh, all the Black Widowing has really come down to me. I really need to get back to the crazy space stuff because this is all way too heavy and spy intent. You know what I mean? Like, there was so many little moments where I'm like, oh, you really could have done something. But I really felt like she got short-shafted in the Black Widow movie. Presumably the only one we're getting, because they literally, like, put the vest on her and kick her off into Infinity War. Yeah. So it's like, what are we going to get a prequel to this prequel, sequel, in-betweequel? Like, I don't know.
The Budapest movie with Hawkeye?
God, I don't want to fucking see that. Jesus Christ. She's going to keep being like, it's Budapest?
Yeah.
I'm like, shut up. Shut up.
But is it Budapest?
Yeah.
It is?
When she said that, I'm like, oh, she's one of those backpackers. Yeah. I've been to Budapest and yeah, it's Budapest apparently. I mean, who cares though? Whatever.
Yeah. So Florence Pugh, is that her name? She's really good. What else has she been in?
Nothing. She's super young as well. Like, she's like 24, 25 or something. Like, this could be one of her first things. I didn't check what she's in and stuff, but yeah, loved her. Thought her presence, actually her and the whole family. Let me ask you this. Are they great Russian accents or are they atrocious?
They're atrocious.
Okay, because...
Actually, I think hers is better than David Harbour.
I actually thought her and David Harbour's were like good to the point where I was kind of just like, I think I'm just buying into it because if I don't buy into this...
It all falls apart.
It all falls apart. Like, what are we doing here? Like, and it's also one of those things where it's like, we've got like magic dust and, you know, this is set in the movies where this is a prequel to a movie where she jumps off a cliff and dies and a soul stone. You know, it's like, what am I going to get angry about accents? Like, who cares? I don't. Actually, you know what? If you care, power to you. I don't give a fuck. Yeah. Like, who cares if the accents are bad? I felt like I understood it. I'm like, I get that they're like this Russian family and it buys it enough for me. And I think that some of the kind of things she did, like there's a little recurring gag, which I can imagine if people hate it, I'd be like, oh, fair enough. But she's like, you're such a poser. You do this Black Widow pose. And then one point she drops down and does it and then like shakes it off. Yeah. She's disgusted by herself. And I was like, I'm in love with her. This is so much fun. But I do think that those funny little gags, they don't work for me. They muddle the idea of the film. Like there's a lot of stuff that feels really at odds with the idea of it. And I think the pinnacle of that is when David Harbour says something like, I don't know, he says something like, oh, what are you on your period or something? Yeah. And she's like, well, actually, they cut out my uterus.
They ripped out my uterus and my, I was going to talk about fallopian tubes. See, I think I can do as good a Russian accent as he.
I was going to say, that was perfect.
It wasn't, it's terrible. Oh, okay,
okay, so yeah, hers is terrible. That was a really good spot on Florence Pugh Russian accent. Yeah, I don't know. It's good enough for me. I don't care enough. But that joke, I just remember being like, I find that really awkward. What if there was a scene later, because they immediately go to a family dinner party and there's some really intense stuff.
Okay. I feel like the joke was intended to miss, and that was the joke. Because I've heard it.
How so?
So, what are you on your period? Like.
Oh, not her response.
Yeah. So 30 years ago, that would have been the joke. What are you on your period? In a fucking shitty movie, you know. Now, the reversal back on him and being like, actually, what we went through was horrific and terrible, and you jesting about it is pretty fucked. Because this is the reality. And I was like, okay, all right, fuck yeah. Fuck him. I'm with you, girls. Fucking over-deliver. Like, for sure, there are some... I've listened to a few reviews for this movie, and there are a lot of people who are like, oh, it just made me feel so dirty. Yeah, I think that's the point. I think the intention is... David Harbour says something awful because he is an awful person in this movie.
For sure,
and then they slap him down and go, no, this is the reality of this situation is we were taken as little children and had our insides ripped out, and now we don't get periods, we can't have kids, we can't do any of it. Fuck you, David Harbour.
I actually, I didn't explain myself properly. I actually think I didn't get the tone of that properly because the way she says it to me, I thought the way she kind of nonchalantly explains it to him, I kind of took as like a weird joke back at him where she's like, she just so casually says it. And all I just kept thinking was like, oh, I think that moment maybe would have been better served when before maybe they have, I don't know when you'd fit it in, but maybe when they're about to do the American Pie song and sit with me for 5 minutes, like sit in the scene. Talk about it and make me wallow in the horrors of the Red Room. Because I think this movie was so close to like getting into this stuff, and then sometimes they would just nonchalantly be like, remember the time we got our insides ripped out?
Absolutely.
And I'm like,
I agree.
I didn't really feel like anything there. I just kind of went like, wait, is she joking back? She seems so nonchalant, which I understand she might be where she's trying to like to deal with it. She's like,
yeah.
But I didn't really feel like she was like, well, fuck you. I felt like she was more just like MCU snapback response in a way that I kind of felt like, okay, if we're going to deal with this again, maybe really sit down and deal with this.
I agree with that. I absolutely agree with that. They should have, and that might have been the first point, and then you continue in that scene later that they get in the bedroom.
Actually,
you know, maybe that gets brought up again, and because he's not with both of them, he's a little more vulnerable.
He could apologize to her, and then they could have. Actually, I would love that. Actually, have that scene, but then have a follow-up scene. Yep. I really think this movie at 2 hours and 15 minutes is like missing 30 minutes. Like, it's one of those movies where I'm like, it kind of flies by as well, to be honest.
It's not hard to watch at all.
But there is probably 20 minutes of action at the end I'd get rid of. Let's talk action. What do you think about the action?
It is uninspired, flat. It feels like someone else did the action sequences, which is maybe a recurring thing with a lot of these Marvel movies. I think that there are, I mean, even the Russos felt like they got worn down with each film, and they became maybe not less good at action, but the action became grander and more effects heavy as they made their 4 films. So by the end, it's completely animated. And Winter Soldier, it's very grounded. And then each film progressively gets towards that. So this movie is riffing on the Russos.
Winter Soldier vibe, yeah.
Yeah, Winter Soldier, but it is nowhere near as focused or good.
The pinnacle for me is Winter Soldier. I think Winter Soldier is my favorite. Then it's probably Civil War and Infinity War, which is all by them. And Infinity War, the first time, I'm like, oh man, I really wish there was more knife fighting, like, you know, or like the car scene where Samuel Jackson is stuck in the car is like, you know, that sequence where the car is slowly getting more destroyed and he's got the machine gun, like really intense, tight action scenes. Or Captain America stuck in the elevator. Yeah. Or the hallway sequence in Civil War. Yeah. But I actually found there was a few in this that I really enjoyed, but I did watch it twice, and the second time my favorite action scene ends, and then I went, oh my God, that didn't need to happen. It just happened because they're like, well, let's put an action scene here. So she meets Florence Pugh and they're like, gun, switch, gun, punch. And it's like a Civil War, Winter Soldier-esque kind of fight.
I didn't mind that fight scene in the house.
Yeah,
I thought it was shot.
And it was very Bourne Identity kind of style, like in a European house as well. So I was like, maybe that's just why I think it's Bourne style. And it was really tense, but then they're both strangling each other and then she's like, truce? And she's like, truce. And then they're like, all right, now let's chat. And it's like, why did you actually fight then? Like, you invited her here.
Yeah.
What the fuck is happening? There was no point for this. And they're like, cause cool fight scene. And I'm like, that kind of annoyed me the second time, which who cares? I want them to fight. And there's another scene I really enjoy, but it also made me go like, man, this reminds me of Fast and the Furious. And I don't know if that's a good thing. And Taskmaster's like, he watched the Fast and Furious, she watched the Fast and Furious movies and she's like, now I'm in a tank. And she's going down the street hitting all the cars with her car. Yeah. And I really liked that. But it was one of those scenes where I'm like, this is like Fast and Furious 6 to 9, where it's like...
And a bit of Mission Impossible Fallout, I guess.
For sure,
but it's not as good as any of them.
Not as good as any of them, but I just love a good car chase. I mean, I just love a car chase.
Yeah.
And like, I just loved that moment, you know, kind of in a vacuum, just having fun with it. But then I think there's some fight scenes that I'm like, okay, we've got Taskmaster versus Red Guardian, David Harbour, and they're like, punch, and it cuts away. And it cuts back, punch, and it cuts away. And I'm like, maybe we'll talk about Taskmaster now as well. It's like, if you're going to have a character, Taskmaster, where their whole thing is that they mimic other people's abilities, and the first scene is them with their robot senses being like...
Watching Civil War.
Yeah, just being like, oh my God, how good is Civil War? I can't believe I got the Blu-ray of this. This is so cool. And I'm like, it is cool. Maybe I should just flick over and watch that instead. It's on Disney Plus.
Yeah.
You know, I don't...
Black Widow's in it.
I'm at home. I didn't go to the cinema for this. I could pay for it at home. So like, watching that, I'm like, okay. I mean, and I've seen the trailer. Taskmaster, she's got a bow. She's got the shield. I've seen the trailer. Yep. So she's going to impersonate all the Avengers. The idea that we're so far into this universe
that we can have
someone who's going to impersonate them all, and then it ends up being David Harbour's like, "Hurr," and then Taskmaster's like, "Whoosh."
So
Black Panther, but then nothing.
So here's what I thought they were heading towards. I thought they're building Taskmaster up. Taskmaster. It's impossible to say. They're building this character up. They're saying, oh, all right, they're watching all this footage of the best superheroes there are.
Of the best MCU movies.
No one can beat Taskmaster except the worst superhero, David Harbour. Because he's such a schlub and he doesn't know how to fight and he's like fat and overweight. I thought like the programming was going to analyze it incorrect and he was just going to stomp her.
That's cool.
But no, it's nothing. They just fight for a bit, then the place explodes. Is that what happens? I can't even remember. How does that fight resolve?
Mama Russian woman kicks her into a room and she's like, we got to get out of here. This place is on fire or something. And then they run away. It's super underwhelming. I found Taskmaster super, super lame. Just the idea of like the first rock up where she rocks up and she's like, boom, I've got Captain America's shield. And I'm like, oh my God.
And like peeks at the side.
And I'm like,
I was like, oh, that's a cool visual.
The best Avenger is now being mimicked by this fucking piece of shit robot Russian spy. And this isn't my theory, but as soon as I heard it, I'm like, well, I want that to be it. And it's like, Taskmaster's wearing a mask. Who's under the mask? I really think it would have been amazing if it had been a Black Widow clone.
No.
I think that would have been incredible. And then it also gives you that kind of thing, well, we've killed her, maybe we'll be able to bring her back as a villain. Or just the way they kind of use Florence Pugh at the end, where you're like, she's going to be in other stuff or something. But also just in this movie, I think there'd been a really interesting kind of situation. Obviously, the way the movie starts playing out with like, oh, well, it's going to be the daughter and stuff. It ends up kind of working that way. But I think that would have been a really interesting way to her to kind of look back on this life she's left. And they've made this clone of her. Because, I mean...
It's very Logan, though, isn't it?
Yeah, for sure. And I kind of fucking love that and that, where it's like,
yeah,
who do I want to see?
Good.
Yeah, well, exactly. I think Logan's really, really good. And like seeing him look at a youngest version of himself from this old past and having to face that, it's like literally facing your own demons. Mm-hmm. But instead of your own demons being a little girl you didn't murder, who then has no emotion throughout the whole film, doesn't speak, gets saved by magic dust, and then is like, I guess I'll go with those other Black Widows you saved with magic dust, and have it just, the last 30 minutes completely fall flat, and it pretty much starts to happen when she takes the mask off and she's like, it's me. It's this character we don't really know, and I'm the child that you thought you murdered, but also, I don't know, it just feels so weird to be like, she murdered a child. Actually, lol, joke, she didn't. But she still thought she did for all this time, and it just feels a bit like, I don't know, just this tonal thing of like, a lot of the movie is like very standard Marvel kind of stuff. And then there's these moments where they do these things. And I think Taskmaster kind of annoys me because it reminds me of these old villains that just are nothing. And it's just like, well, you picked someone called Taskmaster and said they could mimic everyone. And obviously it's my fault for getting hyped from watching a trailer. But it's like, maybe utilize that to the length of its ability. Like,
yeah,
because
explore
maybe
it.
if you're going to not use Taskmaster and just call her Black Widow, and for the whole movie, you're like, who's this main...
But also, do you know who knows all the Avengers? Black Widow. She would probably know their weaknesses. Like, use the character you have to overcome the villain. So there's a point at which there's almost a villain switch up, and it's and we think that Rachel Weisz, the mum, becomes bad. And she's in a black Widow suit, and Black Widow is in a white Black Widow suit, and I'm like, oh, it's every Marvel movie. It's them, but bad. Cool. She had to get that finally. And then next scene, that's not the case. But for a moment, I was like, oh, it's Shadow Black Widow, and she's in white now. I get it. I see what you're doing. Cool, hopefully this goes somewhere. But then immediately undercut. And then they weirdly flash back. And then
twice
showed you all of that, but like
we knew at that point.
Yeah,
it was very heist
You
movie.
rip the mask off.
Yeah,
like
we get it, and if you're a kind of a keen observer, there is a moment. I mean, I noticed this the second time, but like they do show the mask, like they show like the kind of Mission Impossible.
Yeah, when they open the room. Yeah,
so it is there for you to. Like, you don't have to go back, and it's funny they go back twice because it's kind of like they're like the first time they're like, we're gonna do a mask switcher, and the second time she's like, magic nose smelling stuff, and she's like, I'll just hold my breath. She's like, this magic's too powerful for breath holding. And I just think that it's funny that they go back like as a heist movie. So if you're going to keep flashing back, a very heist movie like Ocean's 11, like, oh, you thought we were doing this, but actually we knew the whole thing the whole time. Maybe just fully do that and have like sequences. Maybe have us know that they're going to like infiltrate the Red Room like that, maybe create a different sequence. But I think as soon as we get to the Red Room in the sky, I feel like it kind of loses all like the interesting elements. And so, yeah, if we want to talk Red Room and Black Widows...
I do. So the first thing I'll say about Red Room and villain, Dreykov and Dreykov's daughter, is that it really, really reminded me of X-Men 2. So in X-Men 2, the villain is Brian Cox, and William Stryker, he is like a character returning from our hero Wolverine's past, who has a child that we thought died or something horrible happened to, who he's exploiting the power from and is the main villain of the movie.
It's actually exactly that.
They're like a damaged, person that's being used by their father against the protagonist of the film. It was very similar. And then when you mentioned Logan before, I was just sitting here, I'm like, I have to say my X-Men 2 thing. But yeah, this movie's derivative of so many other things. Like you said, Bourne before, but it's only doing Bourne in a very, very like superficial way.
Oh yeah,
like you get those vibes in that scene between William Hurt and Scarlett Johansson because they're using telephoto lenses and they're going right in on their faces, and they're doing things to elicit that you're kind of watching a Bourne movie now, and we almost veer into it, but we never really do. It's just, I guess the Marvel movies kind of use cinematic language of genre to make you accept the movie a bit easier, but then a lot of the time for me that leaves me really just wanting a straight up genre film. Like I really just want the director to lean right into the spy action thriller and give me like a really good Black Widow movie. Like I mean, we keep getting like Tom Cruise in Mission Impossible doing all this amazing spy shit. And he's such a fucking awesome spy. And I actually kind of get frustrated by those movies at times because they always wrap up so neatly. And I really wanted them to kind of Infinity War it or Dead Man's Chest it. You're making 10 of these. You can do a cliffhanger or you can leave some stakes open or can maybe kill one of the side guys. And they never really do it. But you know what they are doing? All the important stuff. Like all the spy stuff, the thrill ride, the
gadgets.
I actually, even though they might not ever elicit an enormous emotional response from me, any of those movies individually, I really enjoy watching them. And I don't think I'm ever really going to enjoy watching Black Widow. Like there are parts I like, things that I would like to see them explore later in the MCU, because we're watching the largest, most expensive television series ever produced that has made the most money and cost the most money, but it's also the most derivative and at times the most unimaginative. And its success is almost hurting it.
Well, I mean, you just saying that, it's like I've said at the offset of this, I really enjoyed this. I mean, if we're comparing it to Mission Impossible 4, 5, or 6, it's 0 out of 10 in comparison.
Yeah.
Mission Impossible 6 is a masterpiece in compared to this. Like, every second of it. Even 5, which I think has, let's not get into that, but it's like, those movies are way above as spy movies. Like,
I would say 4 and 6 especially.
Especially, 100%. But like, and even 5 just has that incredible motorcycle chase. Exactly. And even that one scene.
And the plane.
Exactly. Those little sequences are better than anything we get in this. Although there are moments in this where, because I really enjoyed the characters and the casting, really casting David Harbour and Florence Pugh, I really enjoyed him doing his Mission Impossible bit and her having little quippy bits. There's a prison break sequence that is essentially nothing, but I had a lot of fun with it. Even her just seeing the avalanche she's caused by shooting a rocket launcher. She kills all these guys, and it's so stupid. There's 1,000 bullets. There's literally a shot of her holding it, and a bullet goes ding, ding, ding on her left, misses her, and then just goes ding, ding, ding on the right, and you're like,
plot armor.
Plot armor. I don't care about that. Then she shoots the tower down, and then and she's like, hey, got him, or whatever. And then the avalanche comes, and she's like, this would be a cool way to die. And then later, when she's about to die, she's like, this is a shit way to die. And I'm like, I like her a lot.
And her favorite song is about this being the day that I die.
And there's a lot of stuff I really like, but it is, I don't know. I think at this point, I'm just so into the MCU that once I get over what really annoys me, wishing we got a Black Widow clone, which I really wanted that to happen. When she took the mask off, I just remember being like, fuck, can you imagine this movie if she was punching on with another Black Widow? And then we got to have Scarlett Johansson back in some form, which I just think would have been really interesting.
And it would have given her something more to do with the performance as a bad guy.
I really wanted to see her flex some acting muscles, because there's some moments in this where she's quipping with her sister, and I'm like, oh, you are getting overshadowed the fuck out of here. Like,
and it's not
cringy, but
and
just
we
like,
know you can. You're the best actor in Hollywood.
She's so good, it doesn't make sense.
Go and listen to our review for Marriage Story. We love it so much. Black Widow and Kylo Ren. Oh my god.
She's so good.
We love Scarlett Johansson here at Spoiler Talk. She will go down as one of the great actresses
100%.
of modern cinema. And she's versatile and she's incredible. And, you know, she's beautiful too. Like, she's got all of it.
Everything, yeah.
It's just such a shame.
It really is. It shocks me.
And it's not terrible enough. Like, nothing's really terrible enough.
And her performance isn't bad. It's just she's not given anything to chew on, which is really weird to me. But yeah.
Because there was so many frustrations I had in Civil War onwards for her character. Just, you know, she really only gets Avengers and Winter Soldier to be, I think, a real character.
Yeah.
With like proper agency in the film.
She's great in Winter Soldier.
She does a little bit in Civil War and then just nothing in the last two, kind of. But, you know, they're big ensemble.
Yeah. I mean, Captain America doesn't get anything in Infinity War, so it's like, I'd rather he get stuff than she in that one.
And originally he wasn't even going to be in it until like the Thor moment or thereabouts.
Really?
They were going to hold off Cap right up until the end.
Fucking hell.
Yeah.
They held off because for too long already.
But they just made 2 Cap films, so they were like, we want to do all these other people. And then we want the Cap moment at the end, so you think he's going to come and turn the tide, and then they lose. So that was the original plan. But then I think they felt they needed that earlier because there were too many moments like that at the end. Because they had a Hulk moment, a Thor moment, and a Cap moment all in that third act.
Yeah, right.
It's a lot. And then you got Thanos on Titan with the other people. That movie, both those movies, Infinity War and Endgame, they're messy. And Infinity War way less so than Endgame. But it's a miracle they came together.
At all.
And I do, as time goes on, I appreciate them more. Because I wasn't,
Whereas this movie, I think that maybe, I mean, now, like the first time I watched it, I think I was a little sour on it. I think the first half's really good. I think it kind of devolves a little bit. Just when I'm kind of like wanting a little bit more from everything, it seems to kind of, I don't know, like, let's get into that Red Room situation. There's a moment where it's like, all right, we've got this magic special pixie dust and it's bad CGI and it's going to flick over all the Black Widows and save them from their awful Black Widow lives. I hate that. I think that's really bad. It's really like lazy. You essentially being like, remember that time when Scarlett Johansson had to emotionally get out of this situation, and like they kind of use that as an excuse to be like, and now he uses pheromones or whatever the fuck. And so now they can't escape it. And I guess in theory, I like the idea that she got out, so he's like, well, I've got to make a better, you know, like I've got to make a better suit of armor around my Black Widows. But
couldn't she have just run to the next room and shot him?
Wait, what's this?
With pheromone bad guy?
Oh my god.
Like, she blew him up from outside in Budapest. Like, if the problem is you being in the room with him, just move away.
But I do think that he started the magic nose stuff after she did that, because he was like, oh shit, they can just turn on me if they get convinced to do that. So now I've got to implement this stuff. Because there's a moment where Florence Pugh's like, you just got out. And now no one else can get out because of you. So I like the idea that she escaped and now they're all trapped there. But I do think that by making it this magic dust that you just go, boom, like she just kicks the ground and it's like, psh, Taskmaster, you're saved. It's like, well, it's so easy that I mean, obviously, I don't know how you're going to spend the amount of time to get there with everyone, but maybe don't have all these other Black Widows. Maybe instead of having sexy supermodels, have a really bad choreographed fight where I'm like, this is like the worst parts of Loki, where they're just like kung fuing, but it's not good. And I'm just like, well, when I watch a good kung fu movie, I'll just watch Winter Soldier or like a Jackie Chan movie or something. Like, I'm not here for this. Like, what is this? Oh, I'm here for action, but not like this kind of action, especially that slow-mo bit. And there's just so many moments where I'm like, oh, okay, imagine they're all like 10-year-olds and she's not swinging a punch. Like, she can't punch a 10-year-old. She's trying to save them. And then she has to magic dust or convince Taskmaster or do something, and then that convinces the rest of them because they follow Taskmaster. She's like the Black Widow. Maybe don't call her Taskmaster, call her the original Black Widow, or like Black Widow, just call her Black Widow. And like, I just think there's so many, you could do any of these little things, and I think that last action scene could have been so amazing. Like, imagine at the end, they get off the heli, like the little ship at the end, and instead of all being like, come with us, Taskmaster, we're all gonna go save all the Black Widows, you've just got a bunch of children picking up Taskmaster and carrying away, and you're just like...
Very Logan.
Oh. Yeah, this should have...
Why isn't this movie just Logan?
It should have just been called Romanoff.
Yeah! I actually like that a lot more. Yeah.
And if you'd done that, and then maybe the first half an hour had been her as a kid, and we really get more than just... I mean, I really did love the montage of clips and them getting taken out and all like the spy guys with their masks were like, get out of the tanks, like their crates, and you're going to be spy child soldiers. But it also was just a moment where I'm like, oh my God, this movie's going to give me everything like I want from this. Like, oh my God, the trailer was them just jumping through sky beam space stuff, and it looks so non-spy. But
she's
this
like
is so spy.
skateboarding down a fucking...
But then there's a moment where she's skateboarding down, and I'm like, this is like someone watched the scene from Infinity War where Spider-Man does this, and he's like, oh, I forgot all your names, but he's flicking through doing his spiderweb and catching them all.
Having a tough time, it seems, too.
Yeah,
and it's Spider-Man.
But he's Spider-Man, and he flies about.
Yeah.
So get him in the air doing fly about things. Black Widow's on the ground punching people. There was like 5 moments in this movie where she like died, but she was like, she had the plot armor of a Fast and Furious movie. And I could be wrong. Maybe if I rewatch all the movies, she's always had this Fast and Furious Vin Diesel
Not
plot
like
armor.
this.
But it really feels like this was like the F9 for her, where it was like, maybe don't have her crash a car, spin it 6 times, fly down a flight of stairs into a subway, then get out and be like, keep running! And she's totally fine. Like, if you're gonna do that, have her come out and both her legs are broken, and we have to pause for a month. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, because just springboarding off that, very early in the movie, right after she gets into a fight with her sister, after they meet, we see her changing, and she's fucked up. Like, her back's all bruised. She's already...
all purple, yeah.
Yeah, and then she falls off a rooftop, gets in 2 car accidents, is beaten up by countless people. The amount of damage she sustains over the course of this movie, and it's just... hand waved away in a very...
Shakes it off. There is a bit where she falls.
But why even include the scene of her changing at all if you're not...
It
like,
kind
if
of
you're
contradicts the stuff you're going to show.
Yeah, you're saying at the beginning of the movie, here's a human. Here's someone, here's Bruce Wayne in The Dark Knight Rises.
Yeah.
That movie actually does kind of handle the fact that his body's deteriorating. I mean, he just puts a mech suit on, he's fine. But it does more.
She doesn't put a mech suit on.
No! And she continues to get... At least he gets bashed and has to fucking sit in a tunnel for 6 months or whatever and heal.
If they'd stayed on the farm with the family, and maybe that's when she was like they could have just been there for ages. Like, time can pass in a movie. Like, there was no reason for them to, there's no necessary
it's your
reason.
movie. You're writing the thing. Do whatever.
Exactly. Yeah. They can be on that pig farm.
There were years between Civil War and Infinity War.
Oh, yeah, actually, that would have been really cool.
2 years, I believe. Yeah.
Because there's one big moment where it's like, it's just kind of the way they do it as well, where it's like, she can have situations where I don't notice her doing things. But there are just moments where I'm like, well, if the Russian Captain America does this, I'd be like, well, it's Captain America. Captain America can jump out of a plane, and she's like, he doesn't need us.
That's why
he doesn't need a suit.
Yeah.
Yeah. But there is a point where they're like falling off a big cylinder-like thingy, and it's falling on the ground, and she's holding a Black Widow that's chasing her, and she drops her. She's like, no! And the Black Widow just falls and hits the ground and dies. She hits about 7 things, and then boom, lands on the ground.
But she's like, stomach.
I don't think she goes, I think she goes, oh no, you're dead on the ground. Like,
there's a little stumble, but it's not enough. I agree.
I blinked and I missed it.
Yeah.
So, because I remember being like, what? The second time I was like, wait, what the fuck? We've just had some really great action and a really fun chase scene. There's an amazing shot where there's like a big wide and they're like sliding down, and there's another one sliding down, and I'm like, oh, this is like a really fun chase sequence. This is giving me like Casino Royale vibes. Just not in the stealing anything, but just I'm enjoying this chase scene. And then this moment happens where I'm just like, I think they forgot that she doesn't have superpowers. And maybe if you're going to have a movie just about her with none of the other superheroes in it, even though she's got a Russian Captain America in it, maybe just lean into that. Lean into the moments that make her, like even the Skyfall moment, I think it's really cool where she sees that Florence Pugh is falling off it. So she's dead. She's like, no! And then right at the end, she jumps off and then she's like parasailing with her and then she sees Taskmaster's coming. So she pushes her away. That moment is like, I'm sacrificing myself. Me and Taskmaster will fall to the ground and die. And there must be a way you could do that where I kind of feel like...
You buy it?
I buy it. Because there are moments where she's falling, she puts her sword in some debris and it's falling, and the way it kind of is, I'm like, I can almost buy this, but I just think there's one too many moments in the movie that make me go like, I feel like you just went, who cares? And honestly, you know what? Who cares? But...
Me.
I do. Yeah. I care.
We care.
And I think that it would be really interesting to...
And if it was
make this movie that, because
if it was just that, or if it was just one of the other things,
there's like 4 or 5 moments.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, this is your opportunity to give us that spy movie, the human movie. There's even a moment where she's like, Florence Pugh's like fucking around with her, and she's like, oh, I mean, you know, something I thought you'd call in like the big boys. And she's like, wait, what do you fucking mean? Who's the big boy Avengers? Like, and she's like, oh, well...
The God?
Yeah, I don't think the God needs to take aspirin because he's sore.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's fucking awesome. Yeah. But you're also not... You're saying it, but you're not showing and doing it.
Yeah.
You're contradicting yourself.
Yeah. She is a God.
So maybe, yeah, exactly. She is Vin Diesel in this, where she's an immortal human being who is a God and can do anything, which is fine. But maybe don't have scenes where someone calls out that Thor doesn't need to take aspirin and she's taking aspirin. Like, you're just doing both the whole time. And I just think that that's kind of like, I don't know, it's not the biggest issue, but it's like something where I'm like, this is the stuff that's keeping it away from actually being one of my favorite MCU movies. Because on the rewatch, I was surprised by how much I enjoyed a lot of it. And then there's just little nagging things where I'm like, there's just too many of these little things. And I think that they're just simple fixes. Like, there are some of the movies, like, I don't know, I can't think of one right now, but there are big fixes you need to do to really change how to make this not perfect, but like a great movie. And these issues seem to be very easy. Like, just do slightly different things here and there, tweak the character a little bit with how they're going to kind of be presented and represented in the movie. Yeah.
It really feels like this movie is, and we said before, like, the MCU is the largest television series ever produced. And like with television series, when directors, even visionary directors, join television series, their episodes don't feel like their movies do. Because a film production is the director's vision, first and foremost. And the television medium it's more of a writer's or maybe a producer's world. And the director is just kind of the guy there for the shoot.
Yeah.
So more and more, while these are feature films, they feel more and more like television in the sense that the director's being stripped out. Like, I heard in interviews, like Scarlett Johansson say things like, oh, I wanted to do this movie because it's a Cate Shortland movie. The director of this movie, an Australian director. She's directed like 3 or 4 indie films, and none of them. No, and I tried to watch them. I tried to find them. I couldn't fucking find any.
Classic Australian stuff.
Yeah, because they've all got decent reviews, and I just wanted to be like, what? Okay, what is a Cate Shortland film?
Yeah.
Because after watching one, I don't know. And obviously you can't know until you watch a couple. You need to see that overlap. But like, what did they want her for? Because what we got, it doesn't feel like there's personality behind this. It doesn't feel like there's someone's vision here. It feels like maybe she came in and directed the actors, and then the second unit did the action, and then all of the visual effects department went over the top of everything, and she was just kind of there to shoot it.
Because there's 2 scenes that I feel like maybe she had a part of. And there's a scene with Scarlett and her sister, and they're bandaged up and they're having drinks. And it's just at some point before they get to the family. And there's a scene at kind of at the outside area of a bar. And then there's the family scene where they're all together just before she like stops the pig from breathing. And that whole scene. And I really liked all that. It's like their farm sequence. And that's really good. But I'd argue, well, I'd argue that that's really great performers shining in the characters, giving me the glimmer of the movie I wish I'd seen, which was that family at the start and then them reconnecting 20 years later, and he's fat now and he's been in prison, and like just the little bits where he's like, well, I was in prison for quite a while, and he like looks at his kids and he's like, pretty energetic, to his old wife, and just little fun little moments, and how they've all kind of taken what happened then differently, and that dynamic. But I would argue that's the script coming through for the first strong time, and just great actors in a scene. I don't necessarily know if that's her, but maybe if you watch her scenes, they're all great family dinner table scenes, and they wanted to bring that out. But yeah, I'd agree. Unfortunately, I don't see a vision from a director in this movie. And she might be a great director, though, who knows?
In all those sequences, our central character doesn't get to shine. The other members of the family do. She's all she cares about is finding Dreykov. Like, that's the only reason she's there. She's not there to reminisce with family. Although I will say, in defense of that whole sequence, there is one very small moment that I thought was kind of devastating and brilliant, where she pulls out a picture book and reminisces with her not mother about the fake memories they created together, as if because that was literally the happiest moment in her life, when they created fake memories about their fake family.
Yeah.
I was like, fuck, that informs her character. That is giving me something. Her performance is kind of like sad desperation, and it's this child who's grown up and never got a childhood except for this like faux imaginary thing, and she like that I loved, and I would have liked a lot more of that.
Yeah.
And that's why when I think that turn happened where it's like she's the bad guy now, I'm like, I like this because I like that. And now we get to continue.
Really brutal.
Yeah, and maybe we can get some more out of this. But
I mean, I think you just saying that, I'm like, fuck, imagine if you got to the Red Room and the mum's like, twist, Dreykov did die. I'm the bad guy. I'm Dreykov.
I've been doing this shit the whole time.
I've just got a voice modulator tricking everyone to think it's Dreykov. Or just like, and I just feel like, and
but
like Dreykov,
I did this childhood thing with all of these girls. You're not important. Like I don't know, like bring it back to the character, bring it back to Black Widow.
That sounds fucking sick. Rather than Ray Winston be like, you can't touch me. I control everything. You think S.H.I.E.L.D. is a thing? You think I control everything? And you're like, dude, you just sang this. I don't know. Is it because you were next to that president or whatever in the opening credits?
Bill Clinton.
Yeah, which made me laugh out loud.
Yeah, that it was Bill Clinton.
I laughed so loud.
The man who went to Jeffrey Epstein's island 26 times. I guess he is the perfect person to put with the Red Room guy.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. I didn't like Ray Winston. Hearing that about the mom, that sounds like a really interesting way to make her as interesting as the other two characters.
Yeah.
Like, to make her shine in that way. And to make it more personal, rather than being like, remember that thing that we just mentioned. I don't know, yeah, that sounds really good.
Do you want to talk about the post-credits?
I do.
All right. So we see Elaine again, who we saw in Falcon and the Winter Soldier. And she's continuing to put a nefarious team together.
Yeah, so what is your thoughts on them being like, all right, we've done our Avengers movies, we've done all of them. Nick Fury can't rock up at the end of movies and be like, I'm forming a team of cool, good guy Avengers. Let's switch it up. Let's have a lady rock up and be like, I'm forming some kind of evil Avengers, but I'm going to pretend they're good Avengers. Because at first, I was like, I'm all into this. Seeing it twice now, I'm like, this feels cheap and lazy as fuck.
It's the same thing.
It's the same
opposite.
thing, but evil. Ooh.
Which is kind of the Marvel formula,
yeah,
I suppose.
It's cheap, lazy, and kind of predictable. And
but ultimately it will build to
something awesome.
Bad Avengers versus good Avengers.
The Dark Avengers sounds awesome.
And so here's an element. So long time during watching the MCU, I've been a big fan of it since 2008 all the way up. I think I saw every single movie in the cinemas except those first two. So maybe like Iron Man 2 onwards.
Oh, nice.
It's like every single one in the cinema.
Yeah.
Pretty sure I saw Iron Man. I just think Incredible Hulk might be the only one, which now retroactively it's kind of not part.
Yeah, exactly.
Although it is. Because it's going to be in Shang-Chi.
Yeah, it fucking is now.
Too many tangents. Let's focus. Every movie was able to so effectively set up its hero and give us an amazing hero performance and an archetypal character story that some of them got to explore over multiple films and crossovers, but a lot of the villains just got short shrift and never got went anywhere, explored. They're kind of done and dusted in the one thing.
Yeah.
And then I always thought, it'd be cool if, by the time we got to Thanos, if his henchmen were villains from the MCU.
Yeah.
So recently, Zack Snyder's Justice League came out, as did his entire story pitch for his vision for the DC universe. And part of that vision was, in each of the DC films, they were establishing a sub-villain that was going to become Darkseid's henchman.
Oh, okay.
So they were actually doing that. And now we're watching Marvel kind of, even though DC never got to actually fulfill that, that was the plan as far back as I guess 2016 is when he started plotting it all out.
Yeah.
And Black Manta, bad chick from Wonder Woman, all of these sub-villains were going to become henchmen of the big bad. And I think that would have done a lot of groundwork in not having nameless, shitty Infinity War Endgame.
Yeah, the worst part of Infinity War is all those henchmen.
And ironically, they all belong in a Zack Snyder film.
Oh my God, they do, don't they?
The MCU fundamentally understood something so integral about comic books that the reward is in the crossover, yet missed it with the villain, the villains.
Yeah.
And they just keep reintroducing, reestablishing, and then tossing away. And they're as valuable as the hero, ultimately. I mean, Venom made $1 billion almost. Like there are Marvel villains that are bigger than a lot of the Marvel heroes. Definitely.
Yeah.
So now, finally, getting back to the original point of the post-credit scene, we're seeing them establish villains, I suppose, in this manner, and it does kind of feel... I mean, no one's done it yet, so I guess it's good, but it feels like an old idea that I've had for so long that now that they're doing it, it's like, fuck, you should have done this already. So I guess it'll be good if it's good, but the idea in itself, whatever.
I think my only fear with that is what you're saying is fucking sick. But at the end, I didn't go, oh my God, Florence Pugh's gonna fucking kill Hawkeye. I'm like, I can't wait for her to rock up in Hawkeye, they'll punch her a bit, and then he'll be like, I didn't kill her.
She killed herself.
I tried to kill myself, then she beat me to killing myself by killing herself.
Yeah.
It was a whole thing. Talk to Thor.
Or Red Skull, he was there.
Yeah, and he'll call Red Skull, and Red Skull will be like, yes, I was there. I'm still there, am I?
I want to nitpick one thing about Red Skull.
Okay.
Just because this is the only opportunity, and this is a tangent, but it's very quick. Red Skull, his deal on Vormir is when you approach, what does he do? He tells you your father's name. Yeah? Like, that's what he does.
Okay.
He goes, Thanos, son of whoever, and Gamora, son of Thanos.
Right,
and then when Black Widow and Hawkeye rock up, he goes, Natasha, son of Ivan. And she's like, I didn't know my father's name.
Oh, shit.
But the plot hole here that I'm getting to, he says Gamora, son of Thanos, daughter of Thanos. But you're not the daughter of Thanos. You are kind of the daughter, but he adopted you.
Yeah,
but if your thing is saying...
Then he should have said the Red Guardian.
Yes!
Oh my God.
Right? Because that's the adoptive father right before she went into it all. So it would have been fitting if Red Skull says to Gamora, daughter of Thanos, it should be daughter of David Harbour.
Endgame's a bad movie.
Yeah, fucking.
We've cracked it. What a trashy movie. I'm going to go home and smash my TV because it's got Disney Plus on it. Got a big Infinity Gauntlet. I'm going to fucking burn it. Oh my God, I'm so angry now. Yeah, man. At least Black Widow is better than Endgame, and it's terrible writing. No, that's fucking... All jokes aside, that's really funny. That's a really funny
little tiny nitpick. It doesn't matter, but I thought,
that's literally what a nitpick is, but I love that. That is so... every time I watch it now, I'm going to be like, you fucking Red Skull, you're all over the place. So that's really interesting with the Ivan thing. I wonder if they considered bringing that into Black Widow.
Yeah, well, I kept waiting for it because I remember that being such a moment in Endgame where she's like, I didn't know.
You saying that, I'm like, I forgot that, but I can literally visualize that now. Yeah,
they do bring her mum up, and they say that Black Widow's mum never stopped trying to look for her.
She was tenacious, and she had to die because she was so tenacious trying to get her back. That is interesting in concept.
But it goes nowhere.
It feels like something where they just kind of put it in. She goes, I've thought about that every day. And all I kept thinking was, okay, if you say so.
Like when you were fighting Ultron? Yeah.
It actually, in my mind, the first thought was the shot where it's like, dun, 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 and it spins around the Avengers. She's cocking the gun. And she's like, oh, I wonder who my mum is. Like, I don't know. It just feels a bit like, if you're going to do the thing, maybe just properly do it.
Yeah.
Like, But I am asking for a movie that isn't an MCU movie in a lot of ways. And I think a lot of my issues with most of those movies is that, like,
we want genre pictures, yeah? Like, you're gonna, and that's why I think Winter Soldier still maybe reigns supreme, because it might be the closest to actually leaning into its genre and sticking with it.
And the only thing that people, I feel like, say sometimes about Winter Soldier is like, oh, well, it's still a big CGI spaceship falling into a CGI spaceship. I'm like, maybe that's how you could see it, but you're not watching the movie, because it's Winter Soldier and Captain America up there together, and
Winter Soldier just pummeling him and him letting him, and it's devastating.
So good. And then, like,
it doesn't matter that all that shit's crashing.
That's just happening to,
because all you care about is that he drags him out of the river, and it's all happening in the background, and that's how they end it, because they know what the focus is.
Yeah, exactly, and that's only happening because S.H.I.E.L.'s crumbling. So it's a big representation of S.H.I.E.L.D., and it had to be big to show that what S.H.I.E.L.D. was going to do.
Because we're in a post-Avengers world at this point. I think they got to do this.
Yeah, it's like when.
But by 2020, like, surely they've worked out comic book movies can succeed. I mean, we have Joker. We have enormously successful blockbuster entertainment comic book movies that don't need gigantic third act action set pieces.
Which I think leads me into a conclusion thought I have. Obviously, stop me if you have more things. But this film, I think, maybe was actually written ages ago in Phase 2, because then the shitty Phase 2 villain makes sense. We're gonna, who do we grab? Taskmaster. It's gonna do some stuff. Because those shots of Civil War could have been shots of Iron Man or whatever. Like, or Captain America 1. Like, it doesn't matter what S.H.I.E.L.D. scene he saw, saw. And the big CGI space thing crashing on the ground is very Phase 2. They've, you know, Ultron's like, I'm gonna bring up the city and crash it into the ground.
Guardians of the Galaxy, it's another ship.
Even that movie, the most un-MCU movie, is like, let's crash a big thing into the thing. They all just do the big thing.
Ant-Man is the outlier, which is crazy.
Right. And isn't that a bit later though, even?
I think it's a very end of Phase 2.
Right, okay, yeah.
Right before.
Yes, and that was crazy refreshing. I've never been so refreshed.
It's a kid's bedroom.
And then, like, exactly.
And they got praise for that, like, that's what people liked most about Ant-Man, I think, was that, you know, the scale was down, and that was kind of the riff and the joke of the set piece, and it was both big and spectacular in the miniature photography, and then they would cut to a wide, and you'd be like, this is so fun.
It's just a little train. Yeah, exactly.
And it's all Edgar Wright, you know that for sure, because there's nothing like that in the second one.
Yeah, and I think that kind of stuff, it's like, well, if they'd made this movie 5-6 years ago, I wouldn't have the complaint. I'd be like, yeah, it was awesome. Like, there was a big spaceship and it crashed into the ground. It was fucking sick, dude. Because when I watched Avengers 2, I wasn't like, another thing flying in the sky. I'm like, oh my God, look at all that debris. Look at them. They're like saving people. It's like retroactive compared to Man of Steel. They weren't actively saving people. It was like, we're in a different time then. But now we're so far beyond that that I'm like, if you're going to do big, crazy space shit, it better be as good as Infinity War action, or what are we doing? Or bring it right back down and have it be like that Winter Soldier punchy punch, or like, you know, just that smaller scale in a bedroom. Like, I don't know, like something else that came out very recently, which we won't get into here, but we might be getting into very recently. They're like, maybe we'll just sit in a room and talk for the whole time.
And it's amazing.
And it's amazing because, you know, retroactively looking at other things, maybe, you know, learn from your mistakes, Marvel. It is one guy being like, yay or nay. Like, he can look at the script and be like, I love all this. Why is there a big spaceship? They're like, we wrote it 5 years ago. Fucking rewrite it. Change it. Just put the Red Room underground.
You read my mind.
Oh, really?
I was about to say that.
That literally just came to me. I'm like, how do you get it off the like? Because it's got to be hidden. And then
underwater base. I don't know, something.
Oh my God, underwater base. And then they could be like swimming, and she's like trying to punch, and she's like, but I can't swim for some reason. Oh my God. Yeah.
Just different. Yeah. Just. It's not terrible.
I actually quite like it, but I have a lot of issues.
And I think maybe, just in the grand scheme of it all, I mean, it does kind of slot probably nicely. Like, if you just finished watching Civil War, I guess it does kind of lead in, it fits, and then, but also, I'm just going to put Infinity War on.
Oh, for sure.
I don't want to watch this in the middle. Like, the MCU, it's all these things, and, you know, I have a mood and I want to watch through it a certain way.
Yeah.
Sometimes I just want Thor. So I'll watch Thor, Avengers, Thor 2, Ragnarok, Avengers 2, Ragnarok, Infinity War, Endgame, and you just get the Thor pictures. Or maybe you want to watch the Guardians, and then that links into Avengers. You can watch it in all these different ways, but now, like...
This should fit into the Captain America arc.
If I'm watching the Black Widow series, I'm not going to even watch her movie. Yeah, and how much more of a scathing review can I give than that?
That's pretty fucking...
I'm watching Avengers 1
brutal.
and Winter Soldier.
Yeah. Because I think I would rewatch it, but you know what?
Sure, maybe I will, but it's not on my definite list of...
But Kieran, why am I watching it? For Captain America, but he's Russian. Yeah. He's playing a better character. Because I used to love him because of Stranger Things. Now I thought I hated him because of Stranger Things. But now I love him again because he's big, fat, and he's like...
You just hate Stranger Things.
Yeah.
Everyone in it still.
I really hated him in season 3. God, I hated his character. Let's not get into that.
No,
that's the biggest can of worms.
We will get into it right before season 4 comes out, I imagine. We should probably go through that. That's one of the biggest pop cultural things of the last decade.
Are you telling me I have to watch season 4 now?
You got to watch all the seasons.
Fucking son of a bitch.
Only if the fans demand it. Do you want us to watch Stranger Things seasons 1, 2, and 3?
Yeah, let us know because I goddamn have some thoughts.
All right, are we done with Black Widow? Do you have anything?
I think I'm done. Yeah,
I'm very happy. Hopefully I didn't come across as too negative because a lot of the time on this podcast I hear myself back and I'm just shitting all over everything. And look, there's enough to like. This isn't the worst movie ever. There's good stuff here. It just doesn't all coalesce. And almost the abundance of good ideas let it down.
Oh, for sure. It should be a better movie. I think that's its biggest crime.
Yeah.
Is that the premise of this movie is so spectacular. Like that first scene where you're like, oh my God, she's like a Russian operative spy thing. That premise alone should make this one of the best movies. At least for me, with what I wanted from this. Yeah. And then it's like...
Just should have really leaned into the Russian spy family dynamic.
Yes.
And it should have been like 50-50 or like 30-70, young, old.
Yeah.
So we really get to establish that relationship because we haven't got any of that for Black Widow before. So now's the time. And you gave us 10 minutes.
Yeah, dude, honestly, my last thing to say is rewatching it when that first scene happened, because I was like, oh, did I even like that much? I feel like the second half I didn't really love. So I'm going to rewatch it, see how I really think. Because I watched it with a lot of mates, had a couple of beers. So I'm like, I want to rewatch this. That first 10 minutes, I'm like, I don't want to see Scarlett Johansson in this movie. I want to see this blue-haired chick for a whole movie. That was my first thought. And then it kept going. I'm like, I actually really do like this. Yeah. But that first scene where she's like, oh, fuck, I can't. I was like,
and she's going from Russian to English.
Yeah, it's so cool.
And you see Dreykov in the background, like, eyeing her, like, oh. And I'm like, oh, the bad guy's fucking sizing her up, because of course.
That's the origin movie I want to see without Scarlett Johansson. Can you imagine that? Fuck, that would have been so cool. They're like, she's dead. She's not coming back. We
got this young girl.
Can you imagine? Because you know how they put stuff in the trailer where they're like, it's Hulk, he's running in the Avengers in Infinity War. It's like, it's Iron Man and Spider-Man flying together. Imagine if every shot of her in this trailer was just fake. And like, she's not in this movie. It's a David Harbour movie.
I keep waiting for the movie that does that. I think that'll come soon.
Oh, fuck, I hope.
We're not far away, because Infinity War and Endgame teetered that line. Like, there were some stones missing. There were some little things where they were throwing us off. But the day is coming where a major blockbuster
puts all the stuff in that's fake.
Yeah, and just but it has to be for something big, because they have to be sure the audience is coming no matter what to do a risk like that.
Dude. Okay.
And it's probably going to be the next Avengers.
Leave right now if you don't want Spider-Man spoilers. Stop listening.
Oh.
Imagine if they put all the 3 Spider-Men in it, all having like burgers together, swinging about and stuff, and then twist, they weren't in the movie. They're like, we got them back for a fake trailer, because fuck you guys. We actually liked our WandaVision twist. Boner jokes all around.
If they did that...
I'd kill myself.
And I would actively... Remember how North Korea hacked Sony? I would join North Korea. I'd be like, let's take these fuckers down properly. Let's finish them. Alright, let's end it there.
Thanks for watching, guys.
Thank you all.
Alright, so you can get us on all our social media things.
Yes, we're on Instagram at Spoiler Talk. We're on TikTok.
Oh shit!
Oh, we're a couple of young lads.
Yeah, don't let these beards fool you. I'm definitely not close to 30. I don't have grey hairs. I'm not thinning out.
I've been using TikTok a lot lately.
Oh, really nice.
I'm just trying to learn how to use it.
Yeah, I would have no idea.
Yeah, I have no idea either. But it's a lot of fun, and there's lots of creative people on there. But there are no movie reviewers on TikTok.
Right.
I couldn't find them, so I thought,
fuck it.
let's give it a go. Let's do short, very, very tight reviews and throw them in and see how it does. So follow Spoiler Talk on TikTok. Email the show at spoilertalkpodcast@gmail.com.
Check out my other podcast if you want really small, tiny reviews about TV shows, Two Brothers, One Pilot, and all your podcast thingies. In a couple of weeks, at some point, we're going to be doing The Americans. Because I remember watching the trailer for Black Widow and I'm like, that looks like that show everyone said was real good. So we're going to do that show, hopefully. Unless we've got something already booked, because often I'm like, oh yeah, we're going to do that other thing. But we're going to do it soon. So check that fucking shit out.
I'm definitely going to rewatch The Americans before you guys do that.
Yeah.
I really liked it. I really liked the first season of The Americans, and it's very reminiscent of Black Widow, and it does all the things that you honestly.
I think
you're
it's what
gonna
I
get.
want.
Yeah,
I think it's the movie I want. Yeah,
you're gonna get all
just
of that
probably with
stuff.
less CGI, like Fast and Furious.
Very
car chases.
grounded, very tense. Yeah, it's very well made television, and it's over now. I think. Yeah, ooh. Maybe we can do it sometime in the future if you love it.
If it's good, yeah. Oh, hopefully.
Anyway, let's wrap it up. We're done.
Catches.
See ya. Spoiler Talk is produced by KCBN Studios and Space Kraken Media.